Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. We've got two folks on tonight. They happen to be married to each other, and they've got a wedding anniversary coming up this weekend, so we will wish them a happy anniversary. But our first guest is Jim Boehm, not the alcohol bottle Jim Boehm. This is Jim Boehm, who is the new executive director of Father Carr's Place to Be here in Oshkosh. And we're going to spend the better part of this hour with Jim talking about, you know, what Father Carr's Place does. I think it's still called Place to Be, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, well, so we're going to find out from Jim what Father Carr's Place to Be is. We've got a lot of new citizens and residents of Oshkosh who probably have never heard of it. So we'll talk about what it is, what they do over there. They do a lot of great things, and also how you can get involved. And then a little bit later, we're going to say goodbye to him, and his wife is going to come on, and we're going to talk with Karen Boehm about. She works for Lourdes, and so we're going to talk to her about the recent expansion that was done, and it is a beautiful expansion. So we'll get into all of that a little bit later. But so congratulations and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cheryl.
But congratulations on the new position, and it truly is new, isn't it?
It is. I'm about 10 weeks into it. I started on August 1st. So,
and talk to us a little bit about your history with Father Carr's Place to Be, because you had been a long-time volunteer, right?
I was. I was there for almost 5 years before I actually took this position on. Started out just answering phones, doing the front desk, and meeting people as they came through the door with donations or if they needed help in any way. And then that kind of went into mentoring and coaching the people in the shelter, particularly the men. We talked a lot about recovery, alcohol and drug addictions. I'm in recovery myself.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Talked about just how to manage life, how to get back on their feet, how to get things going again. Obviously, Father Carr was a Catholic priest, and our ministry, his ministry that he started, is based on the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25. Shelter the poor, cure the sick, feed the hungry, and so on. So we talked to our residents a lot about that. Okay.
So did it start out to be sort of like not really a homeless, well, I guess a homeless shelter. We'll just call it that for lack of a better word. Is that how it started out to be? Because I think it actually started out to be something for kids.
It did. It did, specifically high school, middle school, high school age. So it started out kind of as a community center for that age group. And then it quickly evolved into a shelter and then into the food pantries. And it started in St. Peter's basement. And then went to a downtown site, and now it's where it currently is on Kohler Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I seem to remember, when I was growing up, I seem to remember it being right there on the frontage road. I don't recall it being anywhere else, but that's probably because I just wasn't, maybe I just didn't hear about it.
It's been there for about 20 years already, so time flies.
On the frontage road, yeah, it's been there a long time. I think it was there even like when I moved away from Wisconsin and went somewhere else. And but it was certainly not the campus that it is today, and I'm going to call it a campus because I think that's what it is. You've got a lot of different buildings, you do a lot of different things, and it's much more expanded, and it's sort of specific about some of the things that it does. And so we're going to talk about each one of those. So as far as when you talk about coaching and mentoring, primarily with the men, what exactly do you coach them and mentor them about if they don't have a substance abuse addiction or problem?
Every person who stays with us has a story. And the first thing that I or the other coaches like to do is we just sit and listen to them. We sit and listen to their story, and we try to put ourselves in their shoes, and that's awfully difficult. But you listen to them, and you really just try to give them some hope. And there is hope. There's so many ways that we can help people. There's so many organizations and agencies in not only Father Carr's, but in our community where we can provide some assistance for them. They just need some direction. Some need a little shove. Some need to have some confidence. So it's all of that, of just getting them back on their feet and getting them to believe in themselves that it can be done. So.
Sure. Did you ever think that back when you were just doing nothing but volunteering, not that that's not a big thing, I don't want to downplay that, but you were volunteering for a while and now you're the guy.
And here I am.
Did you ever think that would turn into that at some point?
The idea came to me right when we went into the pandemic, because I was holding weekly meetings and doing some one-on-one sessions with the guys, and when COVID hit, the population in the shelter went down because we weren't allowed to bring new people in, and so I would be going there on my Wednesday regular nights to do a meeting, and nobody would show up. And I would walk in the place and I'd have it basically to myself, and I'd either sit at the table where we had the meeting, or I'd go in the chapel and I would just sit there, and I just really started thinking to myself, there's more to do here, there's more to do here, I want to do more here, and it just evolved until the opportunity came about. And when it did, I just started talking a little bit with the board of directors, and here I am.
Here you are. I know this because I spoke with you last week. I'm writing an article on Father Carr's and Jim for the Oshkosh Herald, and so we talked last week about this. Did you want to share what happened your very first day
of
volunteering?
I will. I'm kind of the wrong guy to tell the story because I don't remember any of it. But so I had been volunteering it day by day for a season. It was 2017, 2018, and they closed the middle of April. They closed their season. So the next day I met with the director of Father Carr's at the time, Bob Lang, and met him in the back of St. Raphael's Church after Mass. And I said, Bob, I really enjoyed doing this work, and I would like to continue to volunteer for this, to help the people of the community. And he said, well, come to Father Carr's on Monday night. Come tomorrow night. I said, okay. So I did, and I was there for about an hour, and I had a sudden cardiac arrest, and I literally passed away on the floor. And it was, I don't remember anything. Obviously. Bob Lang and Dr. Weston Radford gave me CPR till the ambulance showed up, and they hooked up a AED to me. And on the 6th or 7th shock, nobody's really too sure, but on the 6th or 7th attempt, they got enough of a pulse to take me to the hospital. Karen was called, kids were called, last rites were given, but here I am. I made it. I was in the hospital for about a week. So that was a Monday night, and I don't remember anything. I don't remember being in the hospital. I remember going to church the following Sunday, 6 days later. It was Mother's Day. But they were trying to convince me that I had a heart attack, and I mean, had a remote defibrillator on me, so I knew something was up. But it wasn't so tense for me because I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
But it was really hard on the family.
Oh, I bet
obviously.
it was.
But
well,
that was
even
my
on
first.
The people who were helping you while awaiting the ambulance.
Everybody had their role, and Bob Lang did save my life that night.
And he was the then executive director.
Yeah, excuse me.
No, it's quite all right. It's an emotional thing. I mean, it is
and,
because you were, no one had pronounced you dead, but there was no heartbeat.
No, there wasn't. And Bob recognized it, so he started CPR right away. The people at the desk called 911, and Sister Angela, who runs the women's shelter, did what she does best, and she went in the chapel and started praying, and it all worked. It worked out well.
Yeah.
The doctors told me after, they said most people in that situation, only about 5% make it. So I was very lucky.
You definitely were. I mean, God wasn't quite ready for you up there yet. You had more work to do for him down here.
Yeah.
And now you're really doing it.
I think I found my purpose, right?
Yeah. That's an amazing story. I mean, it really is, because you don't hear about someone literally dying that often and making it. So when you talk about 5%, that's pretty slim, really.
Yeah.
So I will ask Karen when she's actually on the set, but she can think about her answer now about what was going through her mind at the time and through your kids' minds while all this was kind of going on. Initially when they got that first call, and then in the days that progressed. As the days started to unfold, were they pretty certain that you were going to make it, though, at that point?
I think so. They put 3 stents in right away because I had some blockage, and then they put me into an induced coma to let the body rest. I think there was some questions as to brain activity or lack of brain activity while I was out, but I don't know. I never know if the brain's right or not, but I'm very healthy. The heart is healthy, so physically I feel good these days. And
you had never prior to that had any kind of, I mean, you're physically fit, a young man, and relatively speaking, and had you had any kind of indication of any kind of cardiac problem prior to that?
No, I actually just had a physical exam not too long before that, and the doctor said, I probably don't even need to see you for 2 years.
Wow.
So I didn't. I worked all day and went to Father Carr's after work, and it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So.
And let's talk briefly, because this is a funny story actually, about what you did prior to coming to Father Carr's. You were a liquor salesman.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was, yeah.
The name Jim Boehm, it's not spelt, his name is Boehm, but that's actually, well, you tell the story.
Well, I was in the adult beverage industry for a long time. Since 1981 I started, so it was a little over 40 years. And I retired on July 29th of this year, and August 1st I started at Father Carr, so there was really no lapse. But the company that I represented, Badger Liquor Company, owns the rights to sell Jim Boehm whiskey in Wisconsin. So I was on a fishing trip with Freddie Knoll, who is the master distiller for Jim Boehm, and when I introduced myself, Freddie said, "What's your name?" And I said, it's Jim Boehm. And he goes, "How do you spell that?" And I said, Boehm. And he goes, that's the way the family used to spell its name. We changed it to Boehm because it's easier to pronounce and easier to spell and much better for marketing reasons.
Right.
So I Googled it when I got back from the fishing trip, and he was telling me the truth. It was Jacob Boehm, who started the company. It was spelled Boehm.
Yeah, isn't that something?
So
you pronounce it Boehm.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Right. I think I knew that somewhere in the recess of my mind, but okay. So you're about 10 weeks into this position. Let's talk about each separate thing that Father Carr's does, because you mentioned some of them before: the food pantry, the the homeless sections for men, women, and women and children, I guess, and the medical care that you provide over there through a free clinic. So I don't know where you want to start.
Well, it's starting to get cold out, so let's start with the shelters.
Okay. And we've got pictures. So as we talk about the shelter, maybe we can bring up some of the pictures of the shelter.
Sure.
So, okay, go ahead.
Sure. So our shelter is a 3-story building. On the main floor is dining, kitchen, and there's an apartment for the sisters of they're called the Handmaids of the Divine Redeemer. They're an order of sisters from Ghana, Africa. Father Carr had a relationship with a bishop from Ghana, Africa.
What are we seeing here right now? What is this?
That is the dining room.
That's the dining hall.
The dining room and the common space in the women's shelter. That's first level.
Wow, that's a nice looking dining area.
It really is. It's,
wow.
It's spacious. There's a TV off to the left that you can see. And then through the right wall, you go into the kitchen area. On the far end, there's a play area for children.
Okay.
And then plenty of space. The women's shelter, the capacity of the women's shelter, and also the children and the women stay on the second floor, is between 40 and 50.
You know, why don't we, since they have a picture up, why don't we kind of go through the pictures? You can explain to us what we're exactly seeing.
Sure.
And then we can go back to talking about the shelter, since you're right, it is getting cold out. So next photo, please. There we go.
This is the lounge room in the men's shelter. So this is up on the 3rd story of the building, and that's the only TV on the floor. There are not TVs in every single room, but that's a lounge area. Guys get together and watch ball games or movies.
Okay. All right. Next.
This is a typical room. So there's this is on the men's floor. There's usually men are doubled up so we can increase occupancy. There are 2 beds and a full bathroom in each room. Father Carr was very big on keeping the residents to allow them dignity and privacy. Everybody always asks us, was this an old hotel? And it's not. They were built specifically this way with Father Carr's plan, because we wanted everybody to have their own room and their own private space. So, so each
and
room
it
has
looks
its
like
own
they're
bathroom.
all air conditioned. It looks like.
They're air conditioned, heat. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
all
nice.
Right.
They're nice rooms.
Okay. Next. There's somebody in the kitchen cooking up a meal.
This is Sister Angela. She does a lot of the cooking. The sisters do. Currently, we have four sisters from Ghana. They do all the cooking, so they cook for the women, children, and for the men.
Okay.
So they're doing. So right now we have about 63 or 64 people living in the shelter. So you take that times three meals a day. You know, they're cooking. You know, some of the guys are at work during their days, but they're probably cooking out of the kitchen about 150 meals every single day. So,
wow.
And they're great cooks. They really put on a feast.
Okay, next.
That's the play area.
Well,
that's on the far end of the common space that we looked at before.
There's a game that I haven't seen in a while. I should say I haven't played it in a while, but foosball, what a great game.
Yeah, we got a couple of those foosball tables on our campus.
Okay, next.
This is the weight room or the gym in the men's shelter. It's one of the rooms that we had some weight equipment donated to us and a treadmill. So it gives the guys a little something to do at night.
Okay, and so we're just seeing part of it here, but are there other things that you have too?
No, that's pretty much it. There's some more free weights off to the side that you can't see, but
okay.
But that's basically it.
Okay. All right, next. Well, there you are.
Well, that would be me. So I'm sitting in what I feel is the most important room on the whole campus, and that's our chapel. Father Carr obviously was a Catholic priest. We have Father Dave Dufek is a priest that lives with the men in the shelter, and he has mass every morning. Well, except ironically Sunday, but we're not considered a parish. So the people that do come to mass throughout the week, he encourages them to go to their home parishes on Sundays. So.
Although a lot of Catholic churches don't they have Mass on Saturdays too?
Saturday evenings and Sunday as well, okay. Yeah.
Now I have a question before we move on. I'm seeing by the Bibles, I'm assuming those are Bibles and not songbooks.
Those are they are songbooks.
Oh, they are, okay.
They're hymnals, yes.
So I see crosses hanging there. Are those to keep track of pages, or are they there for some other religious purpose?
Those are actually handmade rosaries. So Father Dave has a group, they come in once a week, I think it's Friday nights, and they make rosaries. And each one of the pews, the sisters love to say the rosary after Mass in the morning. So we have rosary, we provide the rosaries for the people that come and say the rosary.
Okay, all right, next.
Who's that?
No, there's more pictures. Oh, we don't have any more, I'm told. I thought you sent me more than that, didn't you? Or was that it? I guess.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Okay, so that's the extent of the pictures. But it looks like a really inviting place, welcoming, if you will. And it's nice because we should make the distinction that unlike Day by Day, warming shelter, where you used to volunteer, that is only open, as you mentioned, from usually October 15th or thereabouts until April, mid-April usually. And that's kind of on I'll call it a lottery system for lack of a better word. You know, you got to get there when it turns 6 o'clock and they can only take so many people and that kind of thing. And it is just an emergency type overnight situation. And if you're not fortunate enough to get a spot for the night, then they try to make other kind of accommodations for you in some way. But you guys are not like that. You're not an emergency shelter. Talk to us a little bit. I think you told me you require something like a 2 or 3 month kind of commitment from someone. Is that true, or?
Well, we're not emergency from a standpoint that we don't have the staff to turn the rooms over every on every 24-hour cycle. So we call ourselves a transitional house, if you will. So the ministry really is to try to bring people in. Typically, they're jobless, homeless, and just, down in their luck. So we bring them in and we take them through our whole life enrichment program and work with them on recovery if they need it, health, because we'll talk a little bit more about the St. Francis Free Clinic in a bit, but everyone's given a physical and a wellness check, especially the children. We, especially with the job market is now, we can usually get somebody a pretty decent job within 48 hours. Between the job agencies and a handful of employers that work well with us, we can get the people employed pretty fast.
Wow, that's incredible, and I think it's wonderful that you can, not only have those connections, but that you can get someone a job that fast. And what kinds of fields is it typically in? Does it match up with where their skill set lies, or how does that work?
It can be anywhere from convenience store to fast food to manufacturing. So, but there's some good manufacturing jobs that pay pretty well right out of the gate. So,
yeah. Even fast food these days is paying pretty well. Not enough to support a family, but it's a lot better than one would think. So
yeah. So when we bring people in, we usually try to have some type of an end game with them, some type of a goal. Sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't. It doesn't make any difference. But if they're a good resident and they're living within the structure of the shelter and helping out and doing their chores and abiding by the rules, we're pretty patient. We understand how hard it is. If they have debt, we make sure that the debt gets paid off. If there's some child support that needs to get taken care of, we make sure that gets taken care of. So when they leave, we want them to be as the best chance of success as they possibly can.
Kind of giving them a clean slate, a fresh start.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what we're there for.
Okay.
I'll just go back to a little bit about, so when they come in, we know they're not leaving the next day, so we can't turn the rooms over that fast. There's really no staff. I'm the only full-time employee in the whole place. And then our clinic coordinator, Emily, she's part-time and she gets paid. But other than that, we don't have anybody up changing rooms every single day and disinfecting rooms and cleaning bathrooms and changing sheets and beds. that's not who we are.
Okay.
So we can't be that because we don't have the volunteers or
Right.
the staff.
So
to do it.
so you, when they come there, they're there for a little bit.
Yeah, as long as
What's-
they're a good resident, they can
Yeah.
stay there for a while.
And what's the longest that someone has stayed? Do you know offhand? Or I suppose that's difficult to know going back in history, but you know.
Yeah, I would say a typical stay is probably 3 months.
Okay. All right.
Usually
And-
by then we have them pretty solid.
Yeah, and I know that Father Carr's always has had a curfew in place, and I know when you and I spoke last week, that curfew is still in place. And I think initially when they hear about it, some people have thought, well, that's not right. You know, I mean, a lot of these jobs are second and third shift jobs, and that's just, how does that, you know, work in with a curfew? And I will admit, I was one of those who thought that just seems, it sounds counterintuitive, you know, if people are working one of these jobs, how can they possibly get back here in time to meet a curfew? But when you explained it to me, the light went off. Or maybe it went on. One way or the other, I understood.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that.
Well, the curfew is we want everybody back in the shelter by 4:45 in the afternoon for 5 o'clock dinner. We really, truly believe that sitting down and eating dinner together, it creates as much family as we can create with 20-some guys that didn't even know each other, you know, 2 days before.
Yeah.
It's a good checkpoint for us to just see how the guys are doing, make sure nobody went to happy hour, make sure it's just, we just watch the dynamics of the group, because again, there's nobody, when I go home at night, they're up there by themselves, and we just have to make sure we've got some good chemistry going on. And it is unfortunate that the second and third shift employee can't stay there. We can't be everything to everybody. We do the best that we can, and for those that we can accommodate, I understand why people think that's just why do you do it that way? But it's really important. That 5 o'clock rule for dinner is very important to us, because we've proven it to ourselves that when everybody eats together, it's a good group. But if we got guys coming in late, guys not helping out with chores, guys kind of doing their own thing, that's what we have. We got guys doing their own things. It
throws off the dynamic and ultimately throws off the game plan, if you will, of what you guys are trying to accomplish over there.
Right. We're there to help people physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I think any large family will tell you when they sit down to dinner, that means an awful lot for the dynamics and the love of that family.
Well, there's something about breaking bread together, and
yes, there is.
And I don't care if it's a place like yours, or it's a family in general, or it's a group of friends. Maybe the people don't have family nearby or whatever. So there's something very special about being able to break bread together.
There is, and guys can talk about their days. Father Dave is eating with them, so he can add some spirituality or some advice to the guys that maybe had a lousy day. Guys become friends. We've had numerous occasions where guys have left and moved into apartments with each other.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to happen next week. I think we have a couple guys who never knew each other until they lived at Father Carr's, and from a fiscal standpoint, it makes sense.
Sure.
Two guys can share an apartment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the food pantry.
The food pantry, that's probably the second biggest thing that we're known for. So I'll start out with the pantry itself. We run on Friday mornings. Okay, people come in about 8 o'clock, and we give them coffee, donuts, juice, whatever they want. They sit and socialize for a while. I'll say a few words. Father always says a prayer, and at 9 o'clock, they go through our pantry, and it's kind of set up a little bit like a store. They can go through and shop, pick out what they want for the week, and then they're on their way. And along with the pantry, that's once a week. We have a program called Our Daily Bread, and that's an everyday meal program. So people can come in and just get a meal, get a loaf of bread, get something to drink. get a couple sandwiches, anything to get them through the day. And we probably serve about 50 to 80 people with that. So if you take
And those
that,
are just folks off the street, right?
right? Right, not a resident. That's just anybody off the streets. So if you take the meals that the sisters are cooking on a daily basis, plus our daily bread program, we're feeding about 200 people every single day of the year.
Wow, that
So.
is incredible. Okay, the free clinic.
The St. Francis Free Clinic is kind of the hidden gem on the campus. A lot of people don't even realize it's ours. It's a standalone building, and a lot of people just doesn't think that the clinic is actually ours. But it's only open about 10 to 12 hours a week, which we're working on. We're working on some funding to try to help that out. Just in those 10 to 12 hours, we're seeing probably about 30, 35 patients a week.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some great health providers. We have doctors, pediatric nurse practitioners, psychologists. We have a kidney doctor. I didn't even know we had that.
Wow. That's amazing.
A lot of RNs. So we're working on getting a physical therapist, and we just lost our dentist. We're trying to get.
Oh, so this included dental also?
Mm-hmm. We
Okay.
have 2 dental chairs in there.
Okay. So you're not able to provide any dental stuff right now until you get a
Not
dentist?
right now.
or-
Hopefully,
okay.
yeah. Hopefully, we'll find a dentist who will help us out.
Okay.
But I think the coolest thing is the mothers who do move in with children. You know, every child will get a wellness check, get a physical. Any of the residents can, plus anybody off the streets. It's completely free.
Mm-hmm.
Flu shots. We just did a flu shot clinic yesterday. COVID boosters, things like that. So.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that when we talked initially, you had explained to me that people do not have to prove their need. Like they don't have to show, a bank statement or any. They don't have to prove that they have this need.
No, they don't.
They can just
No.
come and
Yep.
take advantage of
Yep.
things. And now, you guys don't charge them any rent for staying in this facility, right?
Right, the people in the shelter, it's completely free. The laundry's free. It costs nothing.
Wow, that's
So,
fantastic.
The only thing we ask is we do monitor paychecks, and then we monitor bank statements.
Mm-hmm.
So as the money's coming in, we make sure the savings account's going up. And that's part of the life enrichment program.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the program is built around making sure they're physically sound, mentally sound, financially sound, and spiritually.
So let me just give you a scenario here. If they move to Oshkosh for whatever reason, and all of a sudden they need a place to go. They don't have an apartment anymore. Maybe they've lost their apartment. Maybe they split up with someone and that other person retained ownership, if you will, of the apartment. So they don't have to be down and out. They don't have to be, in recovery or anything like that to be able to take advantage of these services. They can just, if they need a place to stay, they can come there for however many months they need to. Am I understanding? I want to convey the right thing to people.
We take people who are usually unemployed and homeless. That's our main ministry, if you will.
And you help them get a job, and then they
Right.
can from there become.
I mean, we're
in a
over
home.
60 people right now, and so we're pretty much at capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't turn people over on a daily or even a couple day basis, we do have an application process, includes a background check, and there's 2 things we're not. I guess this is the easiest way to explain it. We're not we're not an overnight emergency shelter,
Okay.
and we're not a low income housing.
Okay.
So if you're probably on some type of an assistance via disability, and you're probably not going to work we're probably not, because there would be no end game. That if that's what it's going to be,
Right.
then we can bring you in, but how do we, how does the game change? The game won't change. So again, we can't be everything to everybody. But if what you want is to come in, get a job, save some money, because it doesn't cost you anything to live there,
Sure.
and then gain some financial freedom and get independent housing, then that's what we are for.
Sure. Now, I'm sure that you know that there's this tiny village. I'm going to call it that because they're tiny homes. They're all kind of together in a big tract. So I'm going to call it a tiny village. I'm sure I'm not the only one in town who's calling it that. But that is supposed to be, as I understand it, traditional type housing. People moving into there probably just as they're finding work and able to take on some kind of nominal house payment or rent payment, I should say, and stay there until they can grow into a different type of, either they have an apartment somewhere or they purchase a home, whatever the case may be. So will you guys, and nothing's built yet, but that's the concept that is being put forth. It's been approved. Will Father Carr's place to be working then with those folks to get them onto that next step of housing once they leave Father Carr's?
Yeah, I'm aware of the I can't remember what the program's called, but
I can't either. Let's just call it Tiny Village.
I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
But I guess what I would say is if whoever's applying, if it falls within our ministry, falls within inside of our ministry, yeah, we certainly would help them.
Okay.
We've had
Or
people
work
too,
together. Just it seems to me like it's the next logical step, perhaps.
Yeah, and we've helped people out in other situations too, where I'll mention COTS. If somebody's waiting to get into it because they've been accepted to the COTS program, but they need a place to stay for a week, we brought them in and let them stay. People sometimes are between. People from out of town are coming to help a parent. Once in a while we'll help them out because they can't afford to stay in a hotel. If their parents are in hospice or whatever situation, we help that out as well.
Okay.
So
let's talk about COTS just briefly. I have not been able to get a hold of the gentleman who's running that COTS program because I wanted to put that in my article as well, but I can't get a hold of him. So what is the COTS program? And it's COTS, all in caps, COTS. And is it on your campus?
it used to be one of our buildings. It is what used to be our women's shelter. So
Okay.
we had identical buildings, the women's shelter and the men's shelter. We sold the building to COTS about a year ago, and now we've brought the men and the women together in the same shelter, obviously segregated by floors.
So COTS then does what?
I'm not going to speak about it because I don't know a whole lot about it.
Okay.
If I knew I was going to speak accurately, I would.
Sure. No, I understand.
I think what it is, it's a transitional program as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say because I
Okay.
really don't know any.
All right. But that is run by the person who used to have your position, right?
The former executive director for Father Carr's, John, is running COTS next door.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, well, maybe you can help me track him down because I had a phone number and it's not working. So, all right. So I see that we are down to about 18 minutes, and I want to get your bride out here and talk about things at Lourdes. But before we do that, I just want to kind of talk about the holidays are coming up. Obviously, Thanksgiving and Christmas Day, people don't always have family where they can, celebrate with and share meals with and that kind of thing. Or maybe sometimes they just don't want to sit at home alone. Whatever the case may be, you guys serve a tremendous amount of meals. You can accommodate them at your facility, but mostly you are delivering meals to people, and I was blown away by the number of meals that you guys deliver. Tell us just briefly about that.
It's probably the thing Father Carr is mostly known for is the Thanksgiving and Christmas meals. We're back to dine-in, which is phenomenal. So we'll have probably about 150 people coming in for dinner and sitting down in the Mother Teresa Center. And I do want to say, if you have not been into the Mother Teresa Center at Father Carr's in the last year, please come in and see it, because it's completely redone and it is marvelous. And then we do the meal delivery, and we'll deliver about 1,000 meals.
Yeah.
And we do it pretty fast. So we start at about 10:30 in the morning, and we're usually done by 1. We have so many volunteers that come and help us with that program. It is just a marvel to see. And we do that again at Christmas.
And is it the same kind of numbers again? About 150 dining in and about 1,000
Yeah,
meals
Christmas
or so?
is just a little bit lower. It might be about 100 meals lower on
Okay.
Christmas than it is on Thanksgiving, but it's still a big number.
Yeah. And so when you're delivering from 10 a.m. thereabouts to about 1, is this just for people in the Oshkosh area, or how far geographically do you go, Jim?
That's a good question.
Okay.
It depends. It really depends on which volunteer is sitting there and how far they'll drive.
Okay.
If somebody calls from Appleton, that might be a stretch.
Yeah.
We don't advertise an area. Everybody knows we're in Oshkosh. Would somebody run to Appleton? I'm not going to say yes or no right here, but it's a possibility.
Although there are programs, I know that Christ the Rock Church up toward Appleton, I think it might be in the Neenah Menasha area, but all of that sort of runs together. And there are a lot of wonderful programs there for meals as well.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to assume, just for sake of discussion here, that this is pretty much Oshkosh based. And
it is, and I'm sure we get out to Amaro and Winnicott and in the surrounding areas, but primarily that's where it is.
Yeah.
And I just want to go back to the volunteers, and I think I told you the other day, my focus the first year is going to be on community, and I talked a little bit about the remodeling of the Mother Teresa Center and the community cafe that's in it. It's our way of giving back to the community, because the community has been so good to us. Mm-hmm. We're almost 50 years old. And as most people know, we are 100% driven by private donations. We get no subsidy, and to be going for that long as well as we are, it just says a lot about the people who believe in our ministry. And I can't say thank you enough to the community.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are grateful that you guys are there, and I want to talk a little bit about, just briefly the volunteers as well. Even the doctors, the nursing practitioners,
nurse practitioners,
whatever,
yeah.
Those, and the dentists who used to be there, and will hopefully be there soon. They all volunteer their time as well.
They do.
Okay,
they
fantastic.
Do, 100%.
All right, excellent. Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for
welcome.
being there and doing what you do. And we're just going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have Jim's wife out here. So we'll be right back.
Sorry, honey, I took all the time.
Roll over. Chance high five. All right.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique.
And your mother and... I am totally a hot person. Right, guys? Thanks for being honest.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Let 211 be your guiding light for help with food, healthcare, and other resources.
211, how can I help you?
Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211, get connected, get help.
And we are back. And joining me now is Jim's wife, Karen. Karen, I know her from when she worked at the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce, but she is going to tell us how long she's been working at Lourdes. Is it Lourdes Academy? What's the official name these days?
It is Lourdes Academy.
Okay.
And that encompasses our preschool through high school.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. We have talked briefly over the years about different things when I would need to rely on the chamber, but I don't think we've ever met. Certainly we've never talked in this kind of a setting, so I appreciate your being here, because when I was talking with Jim about, coming on the show, he said, well, if you want another interesting story, and he started telling me how involved you were. Anyone who lives in Oshkosh has probably seen the beautiful expansion at Lourdes Academy. It was done quickly. It looks like it was done just beautifully. You can't tell where the building used to stop and where the new thing has started. I mean, and you were one of the driving forces behind this, starting the capital campaign and all that. Talk to us a little bit about how this whole thing started going, because your husband called it your baby. So let's hear about your baby.
He's very generous, sir. So it's definitely been, it's been an incredible project, and I think one of the reasons is because it has been such a team effort. Our staff, our volunteers, our parishes, our community, our alumni, our families have really all just joined forces to make this happen.
Yeah.
So that's been incredible. So I think kind of a little bit of history behind it is that Lourdes Academy we were operating out of our building in the middle of town, which was our current middle and high school building. And then about 5 years ago, we still had 2 elementary schools. So,
that were elsewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So we had one on Merritt Street, which was with the old St. Mary's Church. I know they have different names, Most Blessed Sacrament. And then St. Vincent's Church, part of St. Jude Parish, was our second location. So we combined our elementary buildings into the one, the St. Jude site on Oregon and South Park. And so in doing that, and part of that was, it was just facilities usage. We were in a building that was, about 150 years old, and moved into a newer building that was not quite 100 years old. And amazing facilities that we have been able to use and love for a very long time. But we're also realizing that as those elementary grades are growing, and they weren't built obviously for the technology and some of the facilities that we are using currently in education. So we had been looking at unifying our students onto one campus for quite some time. We actually started a campaign back in about 2014-15 to build a new elementary school. And for a number of different reasons, that campaign came to kind of a stall. And so then, but we had raised about $1.5 million at that time, which has been sitting in a fund for that purpose for that time. Yeah. And then it just recently then we started to look at, okay, we really do need to do something. We're bursting at the seams at our elementary school. We need more space, among other things. But then looked at how do you best manage your space, your educational space, your staff, all of those things, and understanding that we can best use some of those resources when we're able to have them together in one location. So we worked with the Diocese of Green Bay and all of our parishes on the 1x1 campaign. So the 1x1 campaign is actually a diocesan-wide campaign. Okay. However, in Oshkosh, the focus of that campaign was primarily the expansion and renovation of Lourdes. Okay. And that also was thanks in huge part to our parishes who said, you know what, we believe in Catholic education, we believe in the future of it, and we want to throw our support behind that. And so it was actually, they were a driving force behind saying the money that we raise here in Oshkosh, we would primarily like to go to Lourdes. Sure.
So your position is advancement director at Lourdes. So as advancement director, what do you really do? What's the main thrust of what you do in this role?
Sure. So if for the capital campaign, so in general, we really work on advancing our mission and building partnerships in our community, helping to find the resources that we need to operate our school and to thrive and to provide the best quality education to our students in that faith environment. And so that's it's a great opportunity. I feel like it's a blessing because I get to meet people in our community, our alumni and our families on a regular basis that have been so incredibly committed to this ministry, which has served our community. Catholic education's been in Oshkosh for well over 100 years.
Yeah.
So, so that's been a really neat experience. With this particular project, I was involved on the fundraising end of it primarily. Although, as I said, it was a team effort.
Sure.
In terms of building, planning, facilities. So our goal as a team was to raise $10 million for the expansion and renovation. So we started that in December of 2020. And again, we had 1.5 million of that raised from a previous campaign. So it was 8.5 million in new dollars that we were raising.
Okay.
And by November 11th, we had hit our $10 million goal. So just 11 months.
11 months later. Wow. In the midst of a pandemic.
Right.
I mean, that I think is astounding right then and there.
It has been, there have been so many amazing stories throughout this project, but a funny one, that because you mentioned the pandemic, was one of our very first meetings. A gentleman who has been a long time supporter and partner of Lourdes, who a very special person to us. We wanted to come and share this project with him, but he was living in a residential place where visitors were not allowed at the time. So one of our first meetings for the campaign was actually in the car. We met in the car, but it was great. It was
God showed everyone the way.
That's a great
Truly,
way to put
He
it.
created that roadmap, and since you guys were already in a car, it was, it was easy to get a send off.
It was a perfect fit. Yes.
So, and the building, this expansion just, I think, went up so fast. I mean, when it first started, I thought, I don't know if they're gonna get this done in time. And but then my chiropractor is near your facility there, near your school, and she's got kids who go there, and she said it's going to be done by the time school starts. And I said, wow.
Yes.
and I was shocked that it was.
So that was not an uncommon sentiment, but we started. So we had hit our fundraising goal on November 11th. On the Monday after Thanksgiving, I think that was November 29th, they started breaking ground on the additions.
Wow, only a couple weeks later.
And then the Monday after school ended, which I believe was June 6th, they started the renovation. So we renovated 2 full stories of classrooms. So every single classroom was emptied out and everything moved into our gym for the time being. And then it was just an incredible effort. Our students, our staff, Ganther Construction, which was the contractor for that, were incredibly committed to seeing this project be done. They knew going into it. It was a really tight time frame, but it was so exciting on August 23rd to open our doors to our kindergarten through high school students on time and on budget. And there are so many people that we're so grateful for, but there's definitely the work of the Holy Spirit in there as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There has to be. So that I think that's just an incredible story in and of itself. So now you have all grades represented in this one building, correct?
So we do have, in our previous location, previous elementary location, we do still have our daycare and our preschool. So we have a 3 and 4-year-old preschool that are still in that location.
And that location again is where?
It is at 1207 Oregon Street, so right on the corner of
by
Oregon
St.
and
Peter's
Sulphur.
then.
By St. Vincent's.
St. Vincent's,
St.
that's
Jude.
right.
St. Jude, St. Vincent's
Yeah,
site.
St. Vincent's, yeah.
Right.
I'm getting my saints all mixed up.
That happens.
Yeah, it does. And so, but those are the only two things that you would have there. And then grades, grades K through 18. 18 years old. Grades K through 12, you have all represented at this building.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct, yes.
And I can remember, because I grew up by Lourdes, and I can remember it was just one building, relatively small in comparison, and it was just a high school. And to see how it's changed over the years has been interesting to watch. But this one most interesting, I think, mainly because of how quickly it was done, how well it was done. Like I said, you can't see, and it's a small thing, I know, but when I think of expansions, even when you're adding on to a house, it's sometimes difficult, or it's easy, I should say, to see where something stopped and then something started. And just from looking at this building, though, from the outside, you can't tell that. It just seems like it was always there. It's very seamlessly done, I think.
I think our building committee in Ganther did a really nice job of planning that, and again, just keeping everything moving. There were some really neat stories behind that. So we had a group of volunteers when the actual campaign started, that started a prayer campaign for us. And within the first, I'd say 5 to 6 months, we had at least 30,000 prayers that were being offered for the success and completion of this project. And so then interesting things would happen when you talk about the brick. We had a couple of times where there was a delay with the exterior brick delivery, but then the bricks would show up and the masons would have a delay in another project, and they'd send 2 or 3 crews, and it was crazy how fast it went up. But just things like that would happen where you think, oh goodness, how are we going to get through this? And then I don't even know how to explain that.
It has a way of working out.
It does.
It does. Even if God, even if somebody thinks God's not a part of it, He always is. And I'm not going to sit here and get all religious on people, but I believe, just my belief, and I think it's a shared belief here, that when there's a will, there's a way, and God is most frequently the way. So. Gosh, I wish we would have had longer, but don't blame your husband too much. Because he had an interesting story to tell, too.
He sure does.
But, I want to thank the both of you, and he's off camera here, but I want to thank the both of you for everything that you've done for our community over the years, and what you continue to do through your work and, through your faith. And that kind of thing. It's folks like you who make this community as special as it is. So thank you for that, both of you. And happy 29th anniversary this coming weekend. And I won't tell the public where you're going, but you're going someplace where it's peaceful and nice and beautiful this time of year. So congratulations on 29 years and on everything that you do. So thank you both.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for us. I've got just a few seconds here yet that I want to talk about something we've been talking about, homeless. If you can help out the Oshkosh Area Humane Society, they are being inundated with cats, dogs, you name it. They have seen a 300% increase of impounded animals, just recently. And so, help them out if you can at all. Go to their website, oahs.org, or maybe it's .com, and see how you can help them with whatever the case may be. Funds, food, whatever. Go there. They've got a list of what you can do and what they need. And the same thing would apply for Father Carr's. They're always looking for volunteers and donations. So if you can help out in that respect also, please do. It's the holiday season, and everyone should have a home or some semblance of one for the holiday season, but always. So anyway, thanks to my guests. Thanks to you guys as always on the crew. And thank you to you, the audience. I appreciate it. You're why we do this. So thank you. And we will see you next time. Until then, take good care and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.